It was late afternoon in the Riverside Diner, a modest eatery on the edge of town where the lunch rush had finally died down. Liam Carter moved between tables with practiced efficiency, clearing plates and refilling coffee cups. He was 36, tall and lean with the kind of muscles built from years of physical work rather than gym memberships. His white shirt was cheap but pressed flat, his shoes worn at the heels. In the far corner booth, raised voices cut through the low hum of conversation. Two men in slick suits leaned over an elderly woman who sat trembling, a pen shaking in her hand. One grabbed at her purse, the other pushed a document closer. Liam's eyes narrowed. He moved without thinking. His hand shot out, stopping the older man's wrist mid-grab. The entire diner fell silent. The woman looked up at him, tears pooling in her eyes. Liam saw only someone who needed help. He had no idea the frail grandmother before him was Adelaide Whitmore, Chief Executive Officer of Helios Group, conducting a secret test of courage and character. The scene unfolded in fragments. The woman's hand trembled as it hovered over the contract. The pen wobbled. The paper showed dense legal text with no clear escape clause. Liam's jaw tightened. The first man, sharp-featured with slick-back hair, smiled coldly. The second, broader and younger, kept his grip on her handbag. On the table beside her teacup sat a small keychain, subtle and expensive, with initials engraved in silver. A.W. The detail meant nothing to Liam. He only saw the fear in her eyes and the predatory confidence in theirs. White afternoon light streamed through the windows, reflecting off the laminate tabletops. The clink of a spoon against ceramic echoed louder than it should. Fresh coffee scent mixed with something sharper, the metallic tang of tension. Liam's heart hammered in his chest. He'd learned long ago that the right thing was rarely the easy thing. But when he looked at the woman, he thought of his own mother, long gone, and what he'd want someone to do for her. Liam Carter had been many things before he became a waiter. Once, he'd been a distribution systems engineer, designing energy grids and optimizing power flow for a regional utility company. He'd been good at it too. Good enough to notice when his supervisors started cutting corners on safety inspections. Good enough to file a formal complaint. And naive enough to think that honesty would be rewarded. Instead, he'd been quietly blacklisted. One door after another closed. His wife Sarah had been sick then, medical bills piling up faster than hope. When she passed, Liam was left with a 7-year-old daughter and a resume that got him nowhere. So he put on an apron and learned to smile through the exhaustion. He stood 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and calloused hands. His face carried the lines of someone who'd aged faster than his years suggested. But there was something steady in his eyes, something that refused to dim. He ironed his cheap work shirt every morning because he'd promised himself one thing above all else. His daughter would never be ashamed of him. Beatrix was watching, always watching, even when she wasn't there. His coworkers knew Liam as the guy who never complained. He said thank you to difficult customers. He gave up shifts when younger servers needed the hours. The head cook, an older woman named Martha, had taught him her secret soup recipe, and Liam copied it down by hand so he could make it for Beatrix. He kept the recipe card in his wallet, grease-stained and precious. The wound at his core ran deep. It wasn't the loss of his career that hurt most. It was the grinding belief that he'd been crushed by a system that rewarded corruption and punished integrity. Some nights, lying awake on the pull-out couch, while Beatrix slept in the only bedroom, Liam wondered if he'd made the right choice, if speaking up had been worth it. Then morning would come, and Beatrix would shuffle out in her pajamas, and the question would answer itself. Beatrix Carter was 7 years old and saw the world differently than most children. She was curious and observant, with her mother's dark curls and her father's serious eyes. She drew constantly, filling cheap sketchbooks with crayon pictures. Her favorite subject was her father. In her drawings, Liam wore a cape over his apron. She called him her superhero. The image embarrassed him and filled him with fierce determination in equal measure. Her crayon box was battered, the lid held on with tape. But she guarded it like treasure. Recently, she'd drawn a picture of her father stepping between a scary man and a grandmother. She'd titled it in wobbly letters, Daddy Stops Bad Guy. She didn't know yet that her drawing was prophetic. All she knew was that her father had sad eyes sometimes, and she wanted more than anything to make him smile. She dreamed simple dreams: a house with windows that let in sunshine, a kitchen table big enough for art projects, a bedroom where her father didn't have to fold himself onto a couch. She never asked for these things out loud. At 7, she already understood that money was tight, and that her father carried weight she couldn't see. Adelaide Whitmore was 62 years old and had spent 4 decades building an empire. Helios Group was a multinational energy conglomerate, and she'd guided it from a struggling regional provider to an industry leader. She had a reputation for being brilliant and ruthless. What people didn't know was how lonely she'd become. Years of betrayal from trusted advisors had left her isolated. Her last chief operating officer had embezzled millions. Her previous assistant had sold proprietary information to competitors. Trust had become a luxury she couldn't afford, so she'd started going out in disguise. Simple clothes, minimal jewelry, no security detail. She wanted to see how ordinary people behaved when power and money weren't part of the equation. She wanted to find genuine character in a world that seemed to have forgotten what that meant. Today's test had gone better than she'd planned. The 2 men hassling her were exactly what they appeared to be: small-time con artists who preyed on the elderly. She'd known they'd show up. What she hadn't known was whether anyone would intervene. Adelaide had gray hair she no longer bothered to dye. Her face showed every year she'd lived, and she wore those years without apology. On her wrist was a silver bracelet engraved with a single word: Veritas. Truth. It had been a gift from her late husband, and she never took it off. Her eyes were sharp and missed nothing. When Liam stepped between her and the con men, those eyes recorded every detail of his body language, his moral calculus, his unwillingness to look away. She believed deeply in one principle: good people don't need business cards to do the right thing. Today, she'd seen proof that such people still existed. The 2 men threatening Adelaide called themselves financial advisors. Clinton Drake was the talker, smooth and quick with practiced sympathy. Dante Rizzo was the muscle, younger and more direct. Together, they ran a simple scam: find vulnerable seniors, create fear about inflation and lost retirement savings, then push them to sign over access to their accounts under the guise of emergency investment protection. They'd chosen Adelaide because she looked like an easy mark. An old woman sitting alone, no one paying attention. They'd approach with concern, mention rising prices, show fake credentials. The key was speed: get the signature before the target had time to think. Today's Mark had seemed perfect. Quiet, alone, a little shaky. They had no idea they'd walked into a trap, and they certainly hadn't expected the waiter to become a problem. The diner hummed with ordinary life, but tension crept in at the edges. On the radio behind the counter, a news anchor discussed inflation rates and economic uncertainty. The report created ambient anxiety, background noise that made people feel vulnerable. It was exactly the kind of environment where fear-based scams thrived. Liam had noticed something wrong before the confrontation escalated. He'd been refilling water glasses near the corner booth when he caught fragments of conversation. The contract one of the men held had no 14-day cancellation clause. Every legitimate financial service was required to offer a cooling-off period. That was basic consumer protection law. Liam knew this from his old life, when he'd reviewed energy service contracts. The absence of that clause was a screaming red flag. He watched as the woman's hand trembled toward the signature line. Clinton Drake placed his hand over hers, gently guiding the pen. It looked helpful. It was coercion, dressed up as assistance. Dante Rizzo held her purse close to his body, positioned so he could slide the signed contract into it immediately. The whole operation was choreographed for speed. Liam approached with a smile. "Gentlemen, I hope the coffee's treating you well." His tone was light, conversational. "Just so you know, we only do signatures on our ticket slips here. House policy." Clinton's eyes flickered with annoyance. "We're conducting private business." "Of course." Liam pulled out a chair and sat down, casual but immovable. He placed a clean cloth napkin on the table, right between the woman's hand and the contract, creating a physical barrier. "My mistake." It's just, I couldn't help noticing your investment contract there. I used to work in contracts myself. Energy sector. Funny thing is, I don't see a cooling off period clause. That's required by federal law for investment services. Section 1204 of the Consumer Financial Protection Act. He was making up the section number. But the law itself was real. Seems odd it'd be missing. Unless this isn't quite what it appears to be. The color drained from Dante's face. Clinton recovered faster. You're stepping into matters you don't understand. Maybe. Liam's voice hardened. But I understand when someone's being pressured. And I understand that contracts without proper disclosure are void. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. She's going to keep her purse. And we're all going to forget this happened. Clinton stood slowly. You're making a mistake. A big one. You'll regret interfering. Dante pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of Liam's name tag. Evidence. For when we come back. They left, but Clinton's parting words floated back. Hope you can afford to lose this job. The diner remained silent for several seconds. Then, conversation gradually resumed. Adelaide looked at Liam with an expression he couldn't quite read. She reached into her purse, pulled out several bills, far more than her tea cost, and folded them into a napkin. On the napkin, she wrote in elegant script, "You have principles. Keep them." Below that, she signed, A.W. Liam tried to refuse the tip. She insisted. When she left, he noticed she'd also left behind a plain business card with no title or company name. Just a name and email. A. Whitmore. Private. The last name meant nothing to him. He pocketed the card and went back to work, unaware that the security camera above the booth had recorded everything. Unaware that he'd just passed a test. Unaware that his life was about to change. George, the diner's manager, pulled Liam aside an hour later. He was a nervous man in his 50s who'd learned to avoid trouble at all costs. What happened with the suits? They were scamming an old lady. I stopped them. George's face pinched with worry. Liam, I can't have drama. Customers complaining. Police showing up. You got a kid to feed. Don't go looking for trouble. I wasn't looking for it. Just keep your head down, okay? We need you. But I can't protect you. If this blows up. Liam nodded, but the words stung. He understood George's position. The diner operated on thin margins. But once again, doing the right thing had earned him a warning instead of thanks. He thought about the stack of medical bills in his apartment. Remainder balances from Sarah's final weeks that still arrived like clockwork. He thought about Beatrix's school fees for the aftercare program that kept her safe while he worked doubles. He thought about the cough his car had developed and the way his shoes had started splitting along the sole. That evening, after his shift, Liam picked up Beatrix from her friend's house. She threw her arms around him, and the weight of the day lifted slightly. On the bus ride home, she chattered about her day, about the picture she'd drawn, about a book her teacher had read. Liam listened, responding in the right places, but part of his mind remained in that booth, watching an old woman's hand shake. Daddy? Beatrix's voice pulled him back. You. Okay? Yeah, sweetheart. Just tired. Did you save someone today? The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? You have your hero face on. The one in my drawings. Liam pulled her close. Maybe. Maybe I tried. 3 days later, an email appeared in Liam's inbox. The address was professional, corporate. The subject line read, Interview Opportunity. Helios Group. He almost deleted it as spam, but curiosity made him open it. The message was brief and formal. Helios Group was seeking a contract specialist for distribution systems optimization. His background had been flagged as a potential match. Would he be interested in an interview? Liam read it 3 times. Helios Group was huge, a national energy conglomerate. He hadn't applied for anything with them. He hadn't applied anywhere in the energy sector for years. Not after the blacklist. This had to be a mistake. Or worse, a cruel joke. But the email included a phone number for a hiring coordinator. Against his better judgment, Liam called. The woman who answered was crisp and professional. Yes, the opportunity was real. Yes, they wanted to interview him. Could he come in on Friday? He hung up, heart pounding. He owned one suit, bought for Sarah's funeral, and worn only once since. It was cheap and slightly wrinkled. Beatrix found him that evening, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to tie his worn tie. The knot kept coming out crooked. "Let me, Daddy." She climbed onto the toilet seat and worked the fabric with surprising dexterity. Her small fingers shaped the knot perfectly. "There. Now you look like a superhero in a suit." "I don't know if I should go, Trixie. This might be a waste of time." "It's not a waste if you try." She kissed his cheek. "You're the bravest person I know." Friday morning, Liam walked into the Helios Group headquarters. The building was all glass and steel, 40 stories of corporate power. Security directed him to the 32nd floor. A receptionist with perfect makeup smiled and offered coffee. He waited in a lobby filled with expensive furniture and abstract art that probably cost more than he made in a year. 3 people conducted the interview. Serena Hale from Human Resources, polished and skeptical. Otis Bellamy from Operations, older and pragmatic. Henry Flynn from Engineering, younger and cocky. They sat across a conference table, his resume in front of them. Liam could see the gap in his work history, the years at the diner. He could see them seeing it. Serena spoke first. "Mr. Carter, your background is unusual. You have a degree in electrical engineering and 5 years of distribution systems experience. Then, a significant employment gap. Now you're working in food service." She didn't phrase it as a question. "I made a choice that cost me my career. I reported safety violations at my previous company. They didn't appreciate it. I couldn't find work after that, so I did what I had to do to support my daughter." Otis leaned forward. "That's quite a leap, from engineering to waiting tables. I had bills to pay, and I needed flexibility to take care of my kid. The diner gave me both." Henry smirked. "And now you want to jump back into technical work? After years of carrying plates?" Liam met his eyes. "I've never stopped being an engineer. I read technical journals at night. I follow industry developments, and I notice things." He pulled a folder from his bag, printouts he'd prepared the night before. "Your distribution system in the Northwest Corridor loses approximately 11% of transmitted power to line losses. That's above industry standard. You're replacing cables on a fixed schedule instead of analyzing load patterns and replacing the highest stress points first. If you shifted to dynamic load analysis and targeted replacement, you'd cut losses to around 6% and reduce capital expenditure by at least 20% over 5 years. I worked up a basic model. It's rough, but the math checks out." He slid the papers across the table. The 3 interviewers stared at him. Serena picked up the printouts and scanned them. Her expression shifted from skepticism to interest. "You did this in 3 days. 2 nights, actually. After my shifts." In a room 1 floor above, Adelaide Whitmore watched the interview on a monitor. She'd arranged this meeting. She'd pulled Liam's old employment records, read his performance reviews from before the blacklist, made calls to people who remembered him. Everything checked out. He was exactly what he'd appeared to be. Competent, principled, ground down by a system that punished honesty. She watched him now, explaining his analysis with quiet confidence, and smiled. Good people didn't need business cards, but they did need opportunities. The interview ended with careful neutrality. They'd be in touch. Liam left the building with no idea whether he'd succeeded or failed. But he'd tried. That was something. The call came 2 days later. They were offering him a contract position, 6 months, with possibility of extension. The catch: he'd start as a provisional hire, meaning he'd have to prove his value quickly. There would be a probationary project due in 72 hours. Complete it successfully, and the contract would be finalized. Fail, and the offer would be withdrawn. The terms were harsh, but Liam didn't have the luxury of negotiation. He accepted. What Liam didn't know was that not everyone at Helios wanted him there. William Saint was a mid-level facilities manager who'd spent 15 years building a comfortable position. He had arrangements with vendors, understood handshakes, a system that worked. William had a side deal with a cable replacement contractor. Approve the full schedule replacements, get a percentage. Liam's efficiency proposal threatened that arrangement. And William had connections. He knew Clinton Drake and Dante Rizzo from a poker game. When he heard that the waiter who'd disrupted their scam was now joining Helios, William saw an opportunity to protect his interests. The project brief arrived Monday morning. Liam had 72 hours to diagnose and repair a malfunctioning distribution module in the company's simulation system, then propose cost savings of at least 12% for the next quarter. It was a brutal timeline, especially given the restrictions. Limited server access, outdated equipment, no overtime authorization. The whole setup felt designed to fail. Liam worked through Monday night. Beatrix fell asleep on the folding chair in his tiny living room, her head resting on her backpack. He typed line after line of diagnostic code, hunting for the error. His fingers cramped, his eyes burned. He drank instant coffee and pushed through. By Tuesday evening, he'd isolated the problem. Corrupted configuration files in the load balancing algorithm. But when he tried to rebuild the module, something felt wrong. The checksum values didn't match the source files. Someone had tampered with the code. He ran the numbers again. Same result. The files had been altered recently, after the project had been assigned to him. Liam's old instincts kicked in. He'd seen this before. Corporate sabotage disguised as incompetence. He saved everything to an offline USB drive, took handwritten notes with timestamps, photographed his screen with his old phone, creating an air-gapped backup. If someone was setting him up, he'd need evidence. Wednesday morning, William Saint appeared at Liam's temporary desk. He was smooth, friendly. Heard you're having trouble with the module. These systems can be tricky. Tell you what, I can make this easier for you. I've got connections upstairs. You play ball. Stay quiet about certain inefficiencies. I'll make sure you get that contract extension. 2 years guaranteed. Good benefits. Think about your kid. Liam looked at the photo on his desk. Beatrix holding up her crayon drawing, grinning. Below it, she'd written in marker, "Daddy, don't be scared." I appreciate the offer, Liam said carefully. But I can't sell my daughter's eyes. William's smile didn't waver. That's a shame. Hope you don't regret it. By Wednesday night, Liam had rebuilt the module and verified it worked. He'd also documented every anomaly. The altered checksum values, the timestamp discrepancies with the network time protocol server, a hidden network port that had been opened to an external IP address. The connection traced to an address associated with Dante Rizzo. William Saint had been sloppy. Or perhaps he'd thought no one would check. Thursday morning, the demonstration was scheduled. Liam arrived early, set up his laptop, loaded the repaired module. The room filled with department heads, including William. Serena Hale and Otis Bellamy sat in front. Henry Flynn leaned against the back wall, arms crossed. Liam began his presentation, walking through the diagnosis, the solution, the projected savings. 14.2% quarterly reduction in transmission losses. He clicked the button to run the live simulation. The system crashed. Screens filled with error messages. The module that had worked perfectly the night before failed catastrophically. Confused, muttering spread through the room. William stood, shaking his head sadly. This is what happens when you hire unqualified people. He's damaged the entire simulation environment. Otis's face darkened. Mr. Carter, this is unacceptable. Security will escort you out while we assess the damage. Liam felt the floor drop away. Wait. This worked last night. Someone altered it. Convenient excuse. We'll be conducting a full review. Until then, you're suspended. 2 security officers appeared. The walk to the elevator felt eternal. Through the glass walls, Liam could see employees watching. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked away. In the lobby, rain pounded against the windows. Liam stood in the downpour, letting it soak through his suit. He'd been here before, doing the right thing, getting punished for it. The pattern repeated. Endless. Across the street, a small figure huddled under the bus shelter. Beatrix. She'd convinced their neighbor to bring her, wanting to surprise her father. When his big presentation finished, she'd seen the security escort. Her crayon box sat next to her, the wet cardboard softening. As Liam approached, a red crayon rolled out, tumbling across the pavement toward the building's security station. He knelt in the rain and pulled her into his arms. She was crying. "They were mean to you, Daddy. You didn't do anything wrong. I know, sweetheart. Sometimes life isn't fair, but you're a superhero." Liam looked up at the Helios Group logo. 40 stories of power and privilege. He'd stopped at the right moment in that diner. He'd intervened. He'd done the right thing. But had he stopped too late for himself? Had the system already won? The rain continued to fall. The red crayon lay in a puddle, color bleeding into water. Adelaide Whitmore returned to the office Thursday afternoon, cutting short a medical consultation she'd scheduled. Her assistant had called with news of the disastrous demonstration and Liam's suspension. Adelaide listened to the report, her expression unreadable. Then she made a single call. "I want a complete forensic audit of the simulation system, everything, and I want the security footage from the engineering floor for the past week. Bring me the results in 2 hours." Her team moved fast. The audit revealed everything Liam had suspected and more. The timestamp manipulation was obvious once you knew to look for it. The altered files. The hidden network connection. Security footage showed William Saint accessing Liam's workstation Tuesday night, after hours, using an administrative override. More footage from the parking garage showed William meeting with Dante Rizzo. The final piece came from an unexpected source. George, the diner manager, had saved the security footage from the day Liam confronted the conmen. Beatrix had gone to the diner, tears on her face, begging George to help her father. The old manager's conscience had finally kicked in. Friday morning, Adelaide called an emergency meeting. Every department head, all senior management, and Liam Carter, who received a text simply saying, "Come back." Now, the conference room fell silent when Adelaide entered. She was no longer dressed in simple clothes. She wore a tailored suit, her silver bracelet catching the light. She commanded the room without effort. "Good morning. We have a problem. One of our managers has been engaged in fraud, bribery, and sabotage. We have an employee who demonstrated integrity and was punished for it. We're going to fix both situations. Right now." She nodded to her assistant, who began displaying evidence on the screen. Timestamped logs. Network analysis showing the external connection. Video of William at Liam's workstation. Video from the diner showing Liam's intervention. Adelaide let the evidence speak for itself. The room watched in stunned silence. When the presentation ended, Adelaide spoke again. "Mr. Saint will be suspended immediately pending criminal investigation. His employment is terminated. Drake and Rizzo have been reported to law enforcement. They're currently in custody." She turned to Liam, who sat in shock. "And I owe you an apology. This company failed you. I failed you. You did the right thing. Multiple times. And we responded by doubting you." Liam found his voice. "You were the woman. In the diner. I was. I needed to know if good people still existed. If integrity was real, or just a word we use in mission statements. You showed me it was real. And then we almost destroyed you for it. Why the test? Because I've been betrayed by people I trusted. I needed to find someone who did the right thing without an audience. Without a reward. Someone who stopped when others walked past." She paused. "You stopped at the right moment. And I nearly made you regret it." The room remained silent. Adelaide continued. "Effective immediately, Mr. Carter is appointed Acting Director of Distribution Systems Innovation, 6-month provisional period. His primary mandate: implement the efficiency improvements he proposed, and rebuild our ethical culture from the ground up. He'll have full access, appropriate staff, and my direct support. Questions? No one spoke. Adelaide stood. Good. Mr. Carter, welcome to Helios. For real this time. The formal ceremony happened the following week. It was deliberately simple. No grand announcements, no press releases, just a contract signing in Adelaide's office. Beatrix was there, wearing her best dress, carrying her crayon box. When Adelaide signed the papers, Beatrix presented Liam with a handmade medal. Cardboard covered in gold crayon, hung on yarn. For being the bravest daddy, the room broke into applause. Liam knelt and hugged his daughter. Thank you, sweetheart. For never stopping believing. Adelaide watched them with an expression of deep satisfaction. Later in private, she asked Liam about his plans. I've got a 90-day roadmap, he said. First, we standardize network time protocol across all systems and implement immutable logging. Can't manipulate what you can't change. Second, we roll out the dynamic load analysis system. Target the highest stress cable segments first. Third, I want to start a program. Call it Honest Hands. Training and advancement for ground-level employees. Scholarships for their kids. We've got smart people throughout this company doing thankless work. Let's give them paths forward. Adelaide smiled. Honest Hands. I like it. You have my authorization. Budget? Staff? Whatever you need. And one more thing. When I was blacklisted, it felt like the end of the world. Turns out, it was just a detour. There are a lot of people stuck on detours. People who made the right choice and paid for it. I want to find them, then find them. Hire them. Show them that integrity doesn't have to mean sacrifice. That evening, Liam and Adelaide stood by the office windows, watching rain clear from the city. The sun broke through clouds, painting everything gold. You stopped at the right moment, Adelaide said quietly, and you moved forward at the right moment. Not everyone can do that. Liam thought about the years of doubt, the endless worry, the weight of trying to be enough for his daughter. I spent a long time thinking I'd failed, that speaking up had been a mistake. It wasn't. The system failed. You didn't. So what now? Adelaide turned from the window. Now we build something better. A company where people like you aren't punished for having principles. Where doing the right thing doesn't cost you everything. You really think we can change that? With the right people? Yes. She touched her bracelet, the word Veritas catching light. Truth is harder than lies. But it lasts longer. We're going to prove that. 1 year later, the transformation was undeniable. Helios Group's distribution efficiency had improved by 14.8%, exceeding every projection. Security incidents dropped by 62% after the implementation of immutable logging and standardized protocols. The Honest Hands program graduated its first class. 40 employees from entry-level positions, trained in advanced technical skills, promoted to engineering and management roles. Their names read like a catalog of second chances. Archie, Corbin, Elias, dozens more. People who'd been overlooked, underestimated, or blacklisted for inconvenient integrity. Beatrix had a small reading nook in Liam's office, filled with books and art supplies. Her crayon drawing, the one showing her father stopping bad guys, hung in the lobby. Employees passed it daily. A reminder of what the company now stood for. Adelaide established the Beatrix Whitmore Scholarship Fund, allocating 10% of annual dividends. It supported children of working-class families, no strings attached, no corporate branding required. The first recipients included Beatrix herself, her education secured through graduate school. The final scene happened on a warm afternoon. Liam, Adelaide, and Beatrix walked through the old neighborhood where the diner still stood. The restaurant had new owners now, but the booth remained. They stopped outside, remembering. Beatrix looked up at her father. Daddy, remember when I asked why superheroes wear capes, even when they have aprons? I remember. I figured it out. Superheroes don't need capes. They just need to stop at the right moment. She grinned. And you're really good at that. Liam laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. Adelaide smiled. Her loneliness finally eased by the knowledge that good people existed and that they could be found, supported, empowered. The sun angled low, golden through the trees. They walked on together. Three people bound by a moment of courage and its unexpected consequences. Above them, reflected in the glass windows of surrounding buildings, the Helios Group logo gleamed. But it meant something different now. Not just power, not just profit, something closer to truth. Liam's words drifted back to Beatrix as they turned the corner. You know what I learned, Trixie? Stopping at the right moment isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway. About looking at what's wrong and saying this ends now, even when you've got everything to lose. Did you have everything to lose? I had you. That's everything. Beatrix squeezed his hand. Laughter bubbled up between them, bright and genuine. Adelaide walked slightly behind, her silver bracelet catching the afternoon light. The word engraved there, Veritas, reflected truth back into the world. In the distance, the sun continued its descent, but the light remained, persistent and warm, touching everything it reached.